Have you ever hung up the phone with his last text still unread? Your heart pounding, your mind reeling, wondering if you said too much or too little? Have you ever stared at the empty space of your chat screen, replaying his last message, asking yourself, why won't he call me back? Does he even care? You're not alone. In fact, the ache you feel right now is not weakness. It's wisdom whispering that something deeper is at play. Here's what no one tells you. Sometimes, the most powerful move isn't to flood his inbox with pleas or explanations. Sometimes, the most radical act of love and self-preservation is to step into a silence so complete that he can't help but notice what's missing, you. Yet, in a world where ghosting feels cruel and no response feels like rejection, the idea of disappearing, even briefly, can feel terrifying. You worry that he'll slip away forever, that the silence will shrink your value, that you'll be left alone in a void of unanswered questions. But that's precisely why the secret no-contact tactic I'm about to share is so transformative. You see, silence isn't emptiness. It's space. It's an unspoken invitation for him to examine his own feelings, to confront the gap between his words and his actions, to feel the gravity of losing you. When wielded with emotional intelligence, this tactic becomes more than a boundary, it becomes a mirror. It reflects back to him the truth of your presence, the depth of your worth, the steady light of your self-respect. On the silent strategy, we teach you how to harness silence as your ally in the game of love. We're not here to build walls or rehearse manipulative scripts. We're here to reclaim your power through presence, through the art of intentional withdrawal and the courage to let him wonder, reflect, and finally wake up to what you always knew about yourself. You are the prize. Master the game of love in silence, and watch how his awareness shifts from distraction to devotion. Today, we're going to reveal the secret no-contact tactic that goes beyond the ordinary. This isn't about merely ignoring him or cutting off communication for 10 days because the internet told you to. This is about a deeper psychological dance, one that taps into subconscious male behaviors, one that subtly rewrites the narrative of who holds emotional power. By the end of this conversation, you'll understand how stepping into this silence can transform confusion into curiosity, distance into desire, and heartbreak into self-rediscovery. Imagine this. You decide to go offline for a few days. No calls, no texts, no social media stalking. He sends you messages, left unread. He wonders if you're busy. He wonders if you're upset. He wonders if you've moved on. In that tension, he starts to feel a void where your presence used to be. He remembers the way you laughed at his jokes, how you leaned in with genuine interest, how your touch made him feel understood. Suddenly, the idea of your absence becomes an electric presence, drawing him toward reflection. He starts to question, did I take her for granted? Why does her silence feel so loud? But this tactic is more than just vanishing. It's about the intention behind the silence. It's about how you prepare yourself emotionally and energetically before you pull away. It's about what you do in those days of no contact, how you fill your own life with meaning, purpose, and joy, so that when you reappear, you are not a shadow begging for attention, but a radiant force he can't ignore. Over the next few minutes, you'll discover why men respond not to voids, but to the emotional architecture we create in those voids. You'll learn why he may test your silence, maybe by sending a quick "hey" or checking your social stories, and what that really means at the level of his subconscious. You'll see how silence can reveal his hidden fears: fear of losing control, fear of facing his own inadequacy, fear of confronting feelings he never learned to name. And most importantly, you'll learn how to navigate that territory with grace so that he emerges from the silence curious, attentive, and even a little timid, realizing that for the first time, he's chasing what he once assumed was always there. I know stepping into a no-contact space feels vulnerable. You might remember nights when you pleaded through typed words, fingers trembling, or days when you replayed his voice in your mind, hoping for just a sign. But trust this. The silence we are about to explore isn't about punishing him. It's about protecting your peace. It's about reminding yourself that your emotional well-being isn't contingent on his approval. It's about becoming the kind of woman who doesn't need to spell out her worth because she lives it quietly, powerfully, undeniably. So keep watching. Stay until the end, because each layer we uncover builds on the last. By the time we finish, you won't just know how to execute this no-contact tactic. You'll understand why it works, psychologically, symbolically, spiritually, and how to integrate it into your own life so that whether he returns with renewed devotion or walks away into his own shadows, you remain anchored in self-respect and clarity. Are you ready to step into this deeper journey? Are you prepared to let your silence speak volumes he can't ignore? If so, lean in, take a breath, and let's begin. You might wonder what happens in his mind, deep beneath the surface, where he doesn't even realize he's treading water. When he sees your profile light up the screen, but reads nothing, where his messages wait unread, and he feels that quiet sting, something shifts in him. But to truly grasp the power of this secret no-contact tactic, we need to pull back the curtain on the subtle ways a man's psychology reacts when the woman he's come to rely on vanishes, even for a moment. Here's what no one tells you. A man's subconscious is wired to seek patterns. When you are always there, replying to his jokes, sending good morning texts, showing up at the same hour, his brain learned to anticipate your presence as a given. That predictability became his emotional comfort zone. And in comfort zones, desire often wanes. He assumes you exist like the morning sun, inevitable and taken for granted. So when that presence suddenly disappears, when he taps your name in his phone and finds only the indifferent last seen 3 days ago, his mind jolts out of autopilot. He feels a subtle panic, not fully named. He thinks, where did she go? Why isn't she replying? But before he can consciously ask these questions, his heart recognizes the absence. It's like reaching for a hand in the dark and finding only cold air. Now, let's go deeper. He might send a hey, almost as a reflex, because he's trained to expect your attention as the reward for his own effort. But when that hey goes unanswered, two things can happen. If his attachment to you was more habit than genuine longing, he shrugs and moves on, assuming maybe you're busy. But if there was even a flicker of authentic connection, something he never fully acknowledged, then his brain begins to replay memories in search of context. He'll repeat that one moment when you laughed just so, or when you understood him before he spoke. He'll feel a faint ache where your smile used to reside. In that gap between his expectation and your silence, he experiences what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. His belief that you will always be there clashes with the reality that you're not. And his brain can't rest until it reunites belief and reality. That's why, when you go no contact, he often tests the water. He might send another text, check your social media stories, or even ask mutual friends if you're okay. He's not scheming. He's piecing together the emotional puzzle you left him holding. He wants to understand, did he do something wrong? Are you upset? Do you even care? But here's where his inherent logic falters. He thinks he can fill the silence by networking, asking around, seeking stories. Yet the silence you've crafted is not empty. It's purposeful. It's a sacred pause that invites his curiosity to deepen. He begins to feel your absence not as a threat, but as a question. Who are you when you're not performing for me? Who are you when you're not reacting to my mood swings? This is the first core insight. Men are not wired to sit in silence when their source of emotional dopamine, your attention, suddenly vanishes. They need narrative, answers, explanations. And when you offer none, they feel a void that no amount of casual scrolling can fill. They start to chase the feeling of you, not just your words. The second key behavior is emotional safety testing. In relationships, he often pushes boundaries to check if you're still there, if you still care, if he still matters. When you reply promptly, when you reassure him, he records that as safety. But when you ignore him, He's forced to reckon with what lies beneath his own sense of safety, his ego. He realizes that without your immediate reassurance, he feels unmoored. That nameless discomfort pushes him into a gentle panic. He might throw out a bluff. I was just thinking about catching up, to see if you bite. But when you don't, he's left to feel the raw edge of vulnerability, unprotected. Vulnerability is a fragile state for many men, especially in cultures where being stoic is celebrated. The idea that a woman, someone he thought he understood, would withhold her presence brings up questions he doesn't want to answer. Why isn't she responding? Did I scare her away? Does she not care? Each unasked question is a tremor beneath his calm exterior. And that tremor can grow into something he can't ignore. Third, there is the lure of scarcity. In India's bustling social fabric, attention is a luxury. Everyone competes for it: family, friends, colleagues, social obligations. When you make yourself scarce, you disrupt that dynamic. He suddenly sees that you are not just one option among many. You are a rare gem in a world of noise. Your absence becomes a quiet monument to your own worth. He begins to compare your silence with the cacophony of social chatter he normally navigates. And in that comparison, you become both an enigma and a prize. It is in these subtle mental shifts, cognitive dissonance, emotional safety testing, and the pull of scarcity that the secret no-contact tactic finds its power. You don't need to send grand gestures or dramatic farewells. You simply need to step back enough so that his subconscious circuitry notices your value in contrast to the world's roar. He might not text, "I miss you," right away. He might try to rationalize your silence. She's busy at work. Maybe she's upset about something else. Yet if there was any genuine spark, he'll circle back. He might ask, "Are you okay?" But underneath it, he's really asking, "Am I still enough for you?" And when you don't answer him directly, he's forced to answer that for himself. In that moment, when his mind loops through scenarios and his heart stiffens at the memory of your absence, you've done more than just not text back. You've induced a period of self-reflection that is rare in a world built on immediate gratification. You've given him a taste of his own medicine, the feeling of longing. But here's the subtle twist. While he's navigating his feelings, you're not idling in a void. You're living your life, filled with your own joys, your own routines, your own purpose. You're not punishing him. You're protecting yourself. And in the days or hours you choose to stay silent, you're building your own inner fortress of peace. Your self-worth blooms independent of his response, so that when you do reappear, if you choose to, your voice carries not desperation, but calm abundance. Of course, every situation is unique. Some men will respond to this silence by stepping into emotional territory they never explored, calling to apologize, to ask how you're doing, to say they've realized your worth. Others will hold back, hoping you'll break first. But in either case, the pendulum of power has shifted. He is no longer the one dictating the tempo of the dance. You are. And here's the final piece you need to know. This silent reflection prime doesn't just test him, it reveals him. It reveals whether he can meet you on the level of emotional depth you offer, or whether he's content to let your quiet devotion fade. His reaction, whether gentle and thoughtful or indifferent and dismissive, becomes a mirror of his true intentions. In your silence, you see his essence. So the next time you feel the panic rising when his last message lingers unread on your screen, remember why you began this. You are not playing a cruel game. You are holding up a mirror to his subconscious. You are allowing him to see, at last, the gravity of your absence. Have you ever walked into a room lit only by a single candle? The flame doesn't announce itself. It simply casts its glow, revealing colors and shadows you hadn't noticed before. That candle, steady, unhurried, unwavering in its small brilliance, becomes the anchor around which everything else moves. When you deploy this secret no-contact tactic, you become that candle, the subtle point of light in a darker space, inviting him to see truth where he once saw only routine. Here's what no one tells you. A man's subconscious mind is a labyrinth of symbols. He doesn't always process the room, he processes the light. So when you step into silence, you don't vanish completely. You transform into something ineffable, something he cannot ignore. In the hush that follows your withdrawal, his mind seeks patterns in the dark. He wants to locate you, to map your absence, to find where your light once was. And as he searches, he projects onto that black canvas his hidden fears, unspoken desires, secret regrets. Think of this moment as a kind of dreamscape. In dreams, ordinary objects take on powerful meaning. A locked door becomes a barrier to intimacy, a fallen picture frame a shattered promise. When you go silent, your absence becomes a locked door in his subconscious. He turns the key with thoughts like, why isn't she calling back? Did I break something between us? Does she think I'm not worth her time? The more he turns that key, the deeper he travels into his own psyche, confronting cracks in his self-worth he never intended to face. There is a metaphor I often share with women on the silent strategy, one that feels especially resonant for Indian hearts. Imagine a lotus flower rising from murky waters. The lotus doesn't chase the sun. It simply opens its petals when the light finds it. In the same way, your silence is not a pursuit of his attention. It's the opening of your own petals, allowing him to find you when he's ready. He might search the murkiness of distraction and doubt, but eventually, curiosity guides him to that singular bloom of your essence. Within that subconscious maze, a few symbolic rituals begin to unfold. First, there is the magnetism of the void, the empty space you leave behind. In a culture where togetherness is prized, a sudden gap feels almost sacrilegious. Friends whisper, family wonders, social commitments leave messages unanswered. But in that very absence, he feels the pull of scarcity. We all learn, early on, that when something's hard to obtain, its value multiplies. So he starts to see you not as just another face in the crowd, but as the one who slipped away. The void itself radiates significance. You are no longer just there, you are missing. And in his mind, missing has a pulse. Then there's the echo chamber of memory. When you cease to respond to his texts, his thoughts replay your laughter, your voice, that small tilt of your head he adored. He floats through the scenes where your energy breathed life into his world. Sunday morning chats over steaming chai, random memes you sent that made him grin in public, the way you leaned in when he shared his dreams. Each echo becomes amplified in his mind, until the memory of you feels louder than any group chat or work meeting. Suddenly, he's not just missing you. He's missing the version of himself that existed when you were central to his reality. Another symbol emerges in the reflection of his own desire. When you were always available, when you replied instantly to his moods, when you bent around his schedules, he never needed to acknowledge how deeply he needed you. That ease of access lulled him into believing you were inexhaustible, like an endless well. But in your silence, he glimpses the well drying up. He sees that he will have to work for the water, he will have to climb the rocky path to reach you. And that climb awakens a primal hunger. Now, he must prove his worthiness, not to your words or your body, but to the reality that you cannot be summoned at will. You have become the prize, not the given. In this psychological theater appears a more subtle symbol, the mirror of reflection. As he checks your social posts or glances at your last scene, he's effectively holding up a mirror to himself. He asks, who would I be if she chose to walk away forever? That question, though never spoken aloud, reverberates in his veins. It is the soul's alarm bell, warning that he might be losing the essence of what made him feel alive, your presence. That reflection can sting. It might show him moments when he took you for granted, when he let other priorities eclipse your connection, when he chose convenience over commitment. In the hush of your absence, that mirror becomes a force of truth. If he cannot face his own reflection, he cannot face you. Of course, these symbols do not play out on a grand stage. They unfold in micro moments. a huff frown when he realizes you didn't save his number with a heart emoji, a double tap on an Instagram photo he knows he shouldn't comment on, an anxious composition of a text message he ultimately deletes. Each action is a note in a silent symphony, each misstep, a chord in the melody of his longing. And all of it arises because your silence has become the backdrop of his emotional canvas. You are the missing color he cannot replace. There is also the silent test of emotional gravity. He might wonder, what is so compelling in her world that she would disregard me? And in that wondering, he's testing the limits of his own gravity. Does his world align with yours? Can he feel the pull of your life's purpose? Or does he drift weightless around your orbit? Your silence doesn't just test him. It measures how deeply he's anchored in self-awareness, how willing he is to navigate the tides of his own growth to reach you. And finally, there's the symbolic gift of return. When you re-emerge from your no-contact heaven, whether after hours, days, or weeks, you are not the same woman he once knew. You have absorbed sunlight, you have tended your own roots, and you have reclaimed facets of yourself that might have dimmed under the weight of his distractions. Your voice, when you choose to speak again, carries a resonance he has never heard before. It is clear, unwavering, and free of desperation. In that moment, the symbols align. You are the lotus that emerged, the candle that never flickered, the mirror reflecting his truest self. And he sees, perhaps for the first time, the brilliant constellation of why he can never let you go. That, dear sister, is the alchemy of this secret no-contact tactic. It is not about depriving him. It is about unveiling the hidden currents of his unconscious, letting him witness his own dissonance and rediscover his yearning. In the weave of these symbolic and subconscious dynamics, scarcity, echo, reflection, emotional gravity, you are the weaver. And he, caught in the tapestry you've skillfully crafted, can no longer ignore the pull of your presence. Now that you've planted the seed of his longing in his subconscious and illuminated his hidden reflections, it's time to ground these lessons in your everyday rhythms. Because the most profound strategies aren't dramatic gestures, they're the subtle choices you make, moment by moment, that reinforce your worth and reshape his perception. Picture your mornings. Rather than waking to his good morning text, you wake to the gentle light of dawn, your curtains drawn to let the sun paint your walls gold. You spend a few minutes stretching or writing in your journal, not waiting for a ping on your phone. That small shift, prioritizing your own morning ritual over the habit of seeking his attention, sends an unspoken message. Your life is full, your happiness not contingent on his presence. He might notice later that your last scene shows you were active early, but he didn't reply. That detail lodges itself in his mind. She chose her own light first. When he does reach out, perhaps with a tentative, "Hey, I've been thinking about you," you don't rush to validate him. Instead, you pause. You take a breath. You choose your words from a place of calm, not craving. You might respond, in your soft but steady tone, "I'm doing well. Hope you are too." Notice how this isn't punishment. It's an invitation for him to show up with more substance next time. He sees that your responses are measured and meaningful, not automatic. That restraint doesn't push him away. It lures him forward, because he senses the weight of your presence. He understands that every word from you is a choice, not a default. In your weekend plans, you might attend a pottery class, meet a friend for masala chai, or take a long walk in the park. These moments aren't escapes from the drama of dating. They are affirmations of your vibrant life. When he checks your stories and sees snapshots of you laughing with friends or focusing on your art, he feels the magnetism of your joy. He wonders, why didn't she ask me to join? But you know that inviting him isn't always the goal. Sometimes you need to honor your own passions without him. In doing so, you teach him that his presence is a privilege, not an obligation. When you speak to him next, let your voice carry the resonance of your self-possession. If he asks why you were silent, you don't need to rehearse a defense. You can say something like, "I needed space to remember who I am when I'm not thinking about you. Those words land like a revelation more than a rebuke. They reveal that your silence was never about punishing him, but about reclaiming your center. In that clarity, he hears a strength he's not used to facing, a woman who doesn't shrink to fit his insecurities, but stands tall in her truth. Let's translate this into how you engage in conversation. When he tells you about his day, mirror his emotions without overextending yourself. If he speaks about a challenge at work, you might say, "That sounds stressful. How did that make you feel?" You're not fixing it. You're witnessing it. When he cracks a joke that doesn't land, allow yourself a gentle smile, then shift the energy by sharing something light from your world. You're balancing empathy with self-interest. You listen deeply, but you don't disappear into his world. You remain both his confidant and your own best friend. Physical presence carries its own silent strategy. When you meet him for coffee or walk together by the lake, maintain gentle yet confident eye contact. Let your body language speak volumes. A relaxed posture, shoulders back, head held high, this posture signals safety and sovereignty. If he glances at his phone, don't lean in to demand attention. Simply allow a brief silence, then say, "I'd love to hear more about your thoughts." That momentary hush reminds him that your conversation is a shared space worth respecting. You aren't policing him. You're setting the tone for how you wish to be treated, worthy of full attention, not half-hearted scrolling. Texting, that modern heartbeat of romance, also becomes a canvas for your silent strategy. Resist the urge to reply instantaneously unless it aligns with your rhythm. If you sense his message carries a need for instant reassurance, "Are we okay?" Take a moment. Step away. Return with a response that feels genuine. "I'm okay. I just needed a moment to process my thoughts." Such responses read as sincere reflections, not panic reactions. In the silence before your words, he feels the gravity of your presence. You choose to speak when your voice matters, not when his ego demands it. Let's address tension without sacrificing your calm. Perhaps he tries to guilt you. "I thought you cared. You haven't replied in days." Instead of retreating or defending, you hold your ground. You say, "I do care, but I also care about my peace. I needed this time to stay true to myself." When you frame your boundary in terms of self-respect rather than his shortcomings, he hears your truth without feeling attacked. He might bristle initially, but deep down, he recognizes a code he can't break. You will not violate your own standards. In moments of doubt, when he sends a flurry of texts or tags you in memories of better times, remember that your emotions are your compass. If responding feels like collapsing into old patterns, pause. Give yourself permission to let the messages sit unread for a while. Let him feel the echo of his own inconsistency reflected back at him. In that echo, he grapples with the idea that you are no longer at the beck and call of his every whim. You are a woman anchored in her own life. At the same time, cultivate rituals that reinforce your self-worth. Perhaps you end each day with a gratitude practice, naming 3 things you accomplished or moments that made you smile. As you do this, you fortify your sense of abundance, reminding yourself that your value is not tied to his attentions. When you wake up the next morning, that inner abundance radiates outward. He senses it. It changes the way he thinks about you, because he recognizes that you are not the one chasing, he is. When you're sitting across from him, saving a homemade chai he's brewed just for you, allow yourself to fully enjoy the moment. Let your laughter be unreserved. Your questions spark genuine curiosity. He leans in, captivated by how fully you inhabit your own presence. Your silent strategy has crafted the space for him to step into an emotional arena where depth matters more than grand gestures. He begins to share parts of himself he never showed you before, his dreams, his fears, his vulnerabilities. And you listen, not to pave over your own needs, but to witness his growth. In doing so, you demonstrate that true connection is built on mutual presence, not just mutual attraction. If, at any point, You feel the old patterns pulling you toward anxious replies or self-doubt. Return to your internal mantra. I am enough. I am the prize. Speak it quietly as a reminder that the world does not revolve around his perceptions. It revolves around the strength you cultivate within. In those quiet affirmations, you fortify your center so that even if he stumbles or hesitates, you remain grounded. Through these real-life integrations, waking to your own rhythm, pausing before you reply, balancing empathy with self-interest, and reinforcing your worth in routine rituals, you weave an unbreakable tapestry of self-possession. That tapestry is the stage on which your silent strategy plays out. In his mind, he watches the woman he once thought he could command now moving through her life with poise. He sees the value of her presence not just in her words, but in her silences. And he begins to understand that to be with you is to match your cadence, not dictate it. Remember, every choice you make in those quiet moments, choosing your rituals over his demands, choosing pause over panic, choosing presence over persuasion, solidifies the emotional gravity between you. It's not about controlling him, it's about commanding yourself. And when you command yourself, you become the force that he cannot help but respect, admire, and, ultimately, desire. Here, we arrive at the quiet altar where all the threads we have woven through this journey come together. Your presence, your pause, your unwavering self-regard. You've learned how to step into silence so deliberately that it sings louder than any desperate plea. You've seen how that silence can become a mirror for him, reflecting back the truth of what he's taken for granted and inviting him to choose differently. But now, sister, the deepest transformation is waiting for you, in the space between words and thoughts, where your own heart finally meets your worth. Close your eyes for a moment and feel the softness of your breath. Feel it steady, unhurried, like a river flowing underground, hidden, yet undeniably alive. This breath is a reminder. No matter what he does or does not do, your source of life, your source of love, springs from within you. It isn't crafted by his return messages or weighed down by his expectations. It's the pure refrain of your own soul, singing in the silence you have learned to hold. You might have imagined, when you first embarked on this secret no-contact journey, that you would be hollowed out like a vessel emptied by distance. Yet here you stand, not hollow, but expansive. You have pulled away enough to know that your center is not found in his arms, but in the vision of who you are when you are fully yourself. You have become a woman whose silence is not a retreat, but an invitation to him, yes, but even more so to yourself. So let this be your moment of reflection. If you still feel the echo of his unanswered messages, let that echo remind you not of your longing, but of your courage. If you feel the pull of doubt, let it remind you that you once danced to the rhythm of reaction, and now you are learning to dance to the rhythm of intention. This reflective space is not for regret, it is for insight. It is the workshop where you craft a new definition of love, one that begins with self-respect and expands outward. Journal now, if you can. Write these words in your own hand, as if each stroke imprints a new truth on your heart. Today, I honor the silence that revealed my worth. I choose my own light over the flicker of his attention. My presence is not his to command, it is mine to give freely. These phrases are not aspirations. They are declarations. They remind you that you are not a prize to be won, but a prize to be cherished first by you, and only then by the right person who sees your value without needing to test it. You may wonder, what if he never comes back? In the hush of that question lies your greatest freedom. If he does not return, you will not collapse. You will expand, for in that expansion, you discover facets of yourself that were shadowed by his need, your creativity, your joy, your friendships, your passions. You will fill your days with purpose not to distract yourself, but to celebrate yourself. Your calendar will overflow with moments that remind you of the color you bring to life, moments he never had a right to dim. And if he does return, If he steps across that threshold of your renewed presence, you will greet him as the woman you are now. Clear, calm, unburdened by need. He will see it in how your smile travels from your eyes. He will feel it in the gentle weight of your words. In that encounter, you will know whether he is ready to meet you as an equal or whether his love will remain the echo of what he once lost. But you will no longer hold your happiness in suspense, waiting for his answer. You will hold it in your hands, luminous and complete. As you close this video, remember that each habit, each pause before you replied, each moment you cultivated your own light, each breath you took instead of texting a hurried response has built the foundation for a new kind of love. A love that begins in the quiet knowledge that you are a universe unto yourself. And when a man does come to orbit that universe, he does so because he wants to share your gravity, not because he needs to fill a void in his own. So tonight, pause and choose your peace. Let the world go still around you and listen. Listen to the voice that says, I am enough. I am whole. I am the woman who does not chase. Let that be the melody that guides your heart tomorrow and the day after and all the days to come. Because this is not an ending, this is the beginning of you, a woman who has mastered the game of love in silence. If something in this video has stirred a spark in you, leave a comment below. Tell us, what did you discover in the silence? How did you feel when you first imagined stepping away from his messages? Or, if you've already walked this path, share the shift that became your turning point. Your story could be the beacon for another woman who is learning to honor her own stillness. You don't have to chase love. You become it. The silent strategy.